Okay, what's going on, everybody? We are here. We're live. I want to thank you all for joining me today. If you can see and hear me clearly, please drop a one in the live chat, and then we can get today's show started. And as I'm waiting for the ones to come into the live chat, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button because that's the most important thing you do for me on this channel. What it does, that helps to make sure that those who are subscribed to the channel will indeed get the notifications, and it also helps to push this video through the YouTube algorithm as well. Secondly, if you're new to the channel, or maybe you've been ghost watching this channel for quite some time now, please do me a favor and yourself a favor by hitting the subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. And lastly, but most importantly, please make sure you follow me on Telegram. I cannot beg for you to follow me on Telegram enough at TD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. And with the introduction out of the way, and I see that you all can see and hear me clearly, let's get the show started, right? Let's get into today's show. And what we're going to discuss rather briefly, we'll say rather briefly, because I know many of you are familiar with this already, is the recent interview that Trump had on Meet the Press with, I believe her name is Kristen Welker, if I remember correctly. Overall, in a nutshell, they spoke on multiple different things and a variety of topics concerning what Trump plans to do in the first 100 days of his administration, as well as throughout the entirety of the 4 years that he's going to be in office. But what stood out the most is the same thing that always stands out the most, is how egregiously biased these mainstream media outlets are. And Trump actually called her out over that. And he did it very politely. He did it very politely, where he essentially told her, he said, for the most part, you're good at what you do. You're good at what you do, and you're not a dumb person. You're pretty smart, but you do yourself a disservice by being so dishonest and so biased all the time. You're only hurting yourself. He told her it specifically, and to make it a direct quote, he said, "You have a lot of potential, but you're hurting yourself. You're hurting yourself by conducting yourself in this way." Right. And that's the thing that you always walk away with every one of these interviews, is how egregiously biased and dishonest these people are, and that they're all in the back pocket of the DNC. Look at this here. I want to highlight this portion here first, where Trump is talking about and discussing the close to, I believe it is close to 14,000 illegal immigrants that have been convicted of homicide, right, in their home country, but are now here. They're going to talk about that for a minute. And number one, watch how she just outright dismisses that information as if it's not a genuine concern that everybody should have, that these people are here. Number one, she just dismisses it. And then number two, she even comes with a fake fact check as if he's saying something that is incorrect. Check this out. Let's watch this here.
Okay, let's talk about mass deportation, one of your big agenda items. You've talked about prioritizing people who have criminal histories.
Correct.
But is it your plan to deport everyone who is here illegally over the next 4 years?
Well, I think you have to do it. And it's a very tough thing to do. But you have to have, you have rules, regulations, laws. They came in illegally. The people that have been treated very unfairly are the people that have been online for 10 years to come into the country. And we're going to make it very easy for people to come in terms of they have to pass the test. They have to be able to tell you what the Statue of Liberty is. They have to tell you a little bit about our country. They have to love our country. They can't come out of prisons. We don't want people that are in for murder. So we had 11,000 and 13,000 different estimates, 13,099 murderers released into our country over the last 3 years. They're walking down the streets. They're walking next to you and your family, and they're very dangerous.
The 13,000 figure, I think, goes back about 40 years.
No, it doesn't. No,
that
it's within the 3-year period.
Figure.
It's during the Biden term. No, that was a fiction that they put that out.
She knew she was lying when she said that. She knew she was lying when she said that. And throughout the entirety of this interview, she would drop these little very subtle fact checks, alleged fact checks, supposed to be fact checks, that really weren't. It was just little stupid tidbits that didn't really matter in the face of the conversation that's being had. But she would do this over and over and over again. But as it pertains specifically to this point right here, she knew she was lying. She knew those 14,000 convicted of homicide illegal immigrants that have crossed the border all came under Biden. That wasn't under a 4-year period or anything like that. They all came under the Biden administration. But she intentionally put that out there, lying deliberately. Let me rewind it back just a little bit and keep it moving.
Dangerous.
The 13,000 figure, I think, goes back about 40 years.
No, it doesn't. No,
That
it's within the 3-year period.
figure.
It's during the Biden term. No, that was a fiction that they put that out. This was done by the Border Patrol. It's 13,099, and it's during the Biden period of time. And these are murderers, many of whom murdered more than one person. You don't want those people in this country.
But you're saying something, sir, that's significant. I just want to make sure I'm clear, which is that you're saying, yes, you're going to focus on the people with criminal histories, but everyone who's here illegally has to go.
I'm saying this. We have to get the criminals out of our country. We have to get people that were taken out of mental institutions and put them back into their mental institution, no matter what country it is.
I'm sitting here talking to you about how there are up to 14,000 illegal immigrants that have been convicted of homicide that crossed the border under Biden and that are walking amongst you and me now. And she just outright dismisses it. So I want to make something clear. Let's see if we get this clear. How do you just walk away from that? How do you just act like he's not saying what he's saying? The dishonesty that comes from these people are disgusting. And like I saw somebody put in the chat as it was scrolling by, these people need to stop calling themselves news outlets because they're not. These are not news outlets. At best, they're right here on YouTube with me. They're content creators. These aren't journalists, right? These aren't people that are acting objectively. They're very biased, and that's fine. You can be biased. I'm biased. I'm pushing Trump over here. You all know that. I'm extremely biased, but I stand on it. I don't pretend to be something and someone that I'm not. Unlike these people that we see here who consider themselves and claim to be journalists, but are not. That's not what they are. So now what I want to do is that I want to hop over to this section here where he was talking about tariffs as it pertains to the 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. I want to touch on this part here because after he says what he's going to say as far as answer is concerned, I want to get into an article to further highlight Trump's point.
Further, tariff.
I'm going to rewind it back just a little bit.
I'll go a step further. Tariffs are going to make our country rich. Tariffs are going to help us pay off $35 trillion in debt. Tariffs are going to make our country safe because China, as an example, doesn't want to play games with us if we're going to do tariffs on them. They don't want to play games. And we have a lot of games being played on us right now.
Well, I think, and that takes me to my next question. Yeah. Are you actually going to impose these tariffs or are they a negotiating tactic?
Well, I'll give you an example. With Canada, and in particular Mexico, we have millions of people pouring into our country. You agree with that. I spoke with I spoke with Justin Trudeau. In fact, he flew to Mar-a-Lago within about 15 seconds after the call ended. Yeah. He was at Mar-a-Lago. We were having dinner talking about it. I said, you have to close up your borders because they're coming in the northern border, too, a lot. Not like the southern border, but they're coming in the Canadian border a lot. And drugs are pouring in. Almost as importantly, drugs are pouring in. Maybe more importantly, drugs are pouring in at levels never seen before, 10 times what we had. They're just pouring in. We can't have open borders. And I said to the president of Mexico and to Justin Trudeau, if it doesn't stop, I'm going to put tariffs on your country at about 25%. That's a very substantial tariff. And in the case of, in both cases, but in the case where it was really visible, within 10 minutes after that phone call, we noticed that the people coming across the border, the southern border, having to do with Mexico, they were at a trickle, just a trickle. It was, in fact, I call the border. See, unlike my opponent, I do call the border a lot. And I said, how's the border looking today? They said, there's nobody here. They couldn't believe it.
Now, the Mexican president, if I remember her name correctly, Claudia Sheinbaum, she played tough in the beginning. She at least tried to. She put up a decent front just to make it seem like she wasn't completely bowing down to Trump, right? But let's come over here. Mexico detains more than 5,200 migrants in a single day. They are busting this stuff up on the other side of the border. She's busting this stuff up. Let's get into this article very quickly because I want to shift over to another article also after this so you can get the sentiment of how actual Mexicans feel in Mexico concerning Biden's migrant crisis. And after we get through that article, I want you to tell me whether or not Mexicans in Mexico are xenophobic. Right. So let's jump into this first very quickly. This isn't going to take too long. Mexican authorities detained more than 5,200 migrants across the country on Tuesday, officials said on Wednesday, in a major sweep as the nation is under pressure from the incoming U.S. government to crack down on arrivals at the U.S.-Mexico border. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has called on Mexico to ramp up efforts to stop both migrants and synthetic drugs from coming into the U.S., threatening to slap tariffs on the southern trade partner. From October 1st to December 3rd, Mexican authorities have apprehended nearly 350,000 migrants, according to the Navy. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said last week that a recent migrant caravan traveling through the south of the country would not make it north as migration authorities were tending to those remaining. Tuesday's detentions were carried out by the Army, National Guard, and state police, the Navy said, in support of migration authorities. She's throwing everything at these caravans and these illegal immigrants that are attempting to make their way through our country and to the United States. She's doing everything and anything she can to bust it up. And she's not going to get a hard time with this either, as far as the people in her country are concerned, Mexicans, because surprise, surprise, they're tired of it too. Mexicans in Mexico, the people of Mexico are actually sick and tired of Biden's migrant crisis. And they sound a lot like American citizens here talking about the migrant crisis, but they're in Mexico. So don't ever let anybody tell you that you're being xenophobic, because the sentiments are the same on the other side of the border, right? Let's get into this very quickly because I found this particularly fascinating. Marta Castillo is angry about immigration. There are too many migrants in her town, she said, and they don't speak the language. We've been invaded, she said, standing outside a restaurant where she works. I changed my opinion about them because I live in a place where we didn't see any of this. But now, everywhere, there are people who aren't from here. So she was sympathetic at first in the very beginning. But as time went on, and I'm sure that area started getting trashed when you got all these people just passing through, throwing bottles and stuff on the ground and, urinating on the side of buildings and stuff like that as they're just passing through, because they could care less. They don't plan on staying where they are. They're just coming through. As her town and that area got more and more destroyed, she changed her tune completely. Castillo is Mexican, in case you didn't know. She lives in Mexico. Like a growing number of her fellow citizens, she has become increasingly negative about the migrants who have poured into her community, despite living in a country where millions of people have ties to someone who migrated to the United States. The article continues to read, as President-elect Donald Trump prepares to return to the White House, he is demanding Mexico to do more to crack down on the tens of thousands of migrants in Mexico who are headed to the U.S. border. He may find support in an unlikely corner among Mexicans themselves. I'm going to repeat that again. Trump may find support in an unlikely corner among Mexicans themselves. It wasn't long ago that most Mexicans could say that they had family or a friend who had gone to El Norte to work or escape violence and insecurity. But the changing demographics of migration, first the rise of the number of Central Americans, then Haitians, then Venezuelans, then people from all over the globe has hardened some Mexican views. Is that really shocking? Because it's not surprising to me. That's how people will naturally react to this kind of nonsense. 7 in 10 Mexicans, I repeat, 7 in 10 Mexicans believe migrant flows into their country are excessive, according to a survey by the nonprofit Oxfam Mexico, published in 2023. More than half of respondents said they believe migration has a negative or no positive impact on the economy or culture. And 40% say migration in Mexico should be limited or prohibited. That's 40% of the Mexican population that say that. Once again, in case you're arriving here late, we're not talking about the United States right now. We're talking about the sentiments of Mexican citizens in Mexico that are sick and tired of this crap, the same way we're all sick and tired of this crap. So once again, don't ever let anybody lie to you and tell you that you're being xenophobic and all this other type of nonsense. No, they're sick of it on the other side of the border too, because it's ridiculous and out of control. And I do suggest you read this article for yourself. Just you have a moment to maybe screen grab it. This particular article is titled, "As Trump Plans Mass Deportation, Mexican Views of Migration Harden." Right now, let's get back into another snippet from the Trump interview on NBC's Meet the Press. But before we do that, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button. That's extremely important. Do that for me, please. And also, follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. That is extremely important. The link to my Telegram is pinned in a live chat. It's in the description box below, and it will be pinned in the comment section as well once the stream ends. Please do that for me. Thank you very much. And of course, subscribe, right, if you haven't done that already. So now let's get into my favorite topic, the topic that triggers me the most, family separation. Let's jump into this.
Other group of people, the estimated 4 million families in America who have mixed immigration status. So I'm talking about parents who might be here illegally, but the kids are here legally. Your borders are.
You're talking about separation.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are two aspects to this. Your border czar, Tom Homan, said they can be deported together. Correct. Is that the plan?
Well, that way you keep well, I don't want to be breaking up families. So the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together, and you have to send them all back.
Even kids who are here legally?
Well, what you're going to do if they want to stay with the father? Look, we have to have rules and regulations. You can always find something out like, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. I'll tell you what's going to be horrible. When we take a wonderful young woman who's with a criminal, and they show the woman, and she could stay by the law, but they show the woman being taken out, or they want her out, and your cameras are focused on her as she's crying, as she's being taken out of our country, and then the public turns against us. But we have to do our job, and you have to have a series of standards and a series of laws. And in the end, look, our country is a mess. We have the highest crime rate, and during the debate, a man whose ratings have gone way down, David Muir, said to me, no, crime is, because I had to debate 3 people, not one. Debating 1 was easy. Debating 3 was actually pretty easy, too, if you want to know the truth. But
he's never going to let that go. And he shouldn't. He shouldn't let it go. He should rub it in every time he gets a chance to. But it's just funny to me. He's going to make sure you hear about that if ever he has to refer to them.
Debating 1 was easy. Debating 3 was actually pretty easy, too, if you want to know the truth. But David Muir said, the crime rates have gone down. I said, no, they've gone up. And then the following day, they released the crime rates, and they were way up.
Yeah, and the FBI statistics. You're talking about those FBI statistics.
Well, no, but he gave the wrong answer.
Confusing based on what you're looking at.
But a lot of that is migrant crime.
Let me ask you about another aspect
Kristen,
of this.
a lot of it's migrant crime.
Well, let me ask you about another.
Once again, and this is just one of multiple examples, because we're not covering the entire interview. Once again, she just dismisses actual facts. Just dismissing information when she's being told correct information, just dismisses it. The fact that in the middle of a debate where it's 3-on-1, they're fact checking him with lies, the same way we heard Kristen do earlier, fact checking him with a lie. That's what these people do. and she just dismisses it when she's being presented with the truth.
Aspect of this that I think a lot of people are really curious about. I mean, 3% of the people who are here illegally have criminal histories, but in your...
That was another one. That has nothing to do with nothing. 3% of the people here, that are legally have criminal histories. Okay, and they can all go. They can go, as well as those who are just simply here illegal who don't have criminal history. What's your point? What's your point? You see how she did that throughout the entire interview, where you drop these little unnecessary, ridiculous, just non-relevant, nuggets of information, as if you're fact checking and correcting him when you're not. That meant nothing. But, carry on. Let's keep pretending like you're fact checking.
First administration, you had the zero tolerance policy.
I'm going to wind it back just a little bit, and I'm going to let it run.
About another aspect
Kristen,
of this.
a lot of it's migrant crime.
Well, let me ask you about another aspect of this that I think a lot of people are really curious about. I mean, 3% of the people who are here illegally have criminal histories. But in your first administration, you had the zero tolerance policy, where we did see family separations.
Yeah.
You ended it. The purpose of that, though, to some extent, and you talked about this at the time, was deterrent.
You also had it with Obama. You do know that.
He didn't have a zero tolerance policy.
And you also know he built the jails for children.
He didn't have a zero tolerance policy.
But in 2014, he built the jails. You know that.
I want to ask you about the zero.
Just dismissing everything. I mean, once again, stop saying that you're a journalist and that this is some sort of news outlet in mainstream media or whatever. You're a YouTuber just like me. You're just a content creator. You're a content creator pushing the DNC. These people just need to say exactly who they are at this point. This is ridiculous and stupid.
Zero tolerance policy. I mean, he didn't have a systemic, we're going to separate families. Families were separated when parents were a threat to the kids.
We don't have to separate a family.
This.
Excuse me, Kristen.
Yeah.
We don't have to separate families.
Yeah.
We'll send the whole family very humanely back to the country where they came. That way the family's not separated.
So no more family separations. You're not reviving the zero tolerance policy.
It depends on the family. The family may decide to say, I'd rather have dad go, and we'll stay here. And in which case they have that option.
But you're not going to revive your zero tolerance policy, which was put in place as a deterrent. Is there any universe where you would bring that back, sir?
We need deterrence. Look, ready? When somebody comes here illegally, they're going out. It's very simple. When they come here illegally, they're going out. Now, if they come here illegally, but their family is here legally, then the family has a choice. The person that came in illegally can go out, or they can all go out together. And that was made very clear by Tom Homan. So
you're not, at this point in time, planning to revive that zero tolerance policy where kids are
Well, if you call
separated.
that, yeah, I'm doing what I just told you I'm going to do. I don't want to send the family out. I don't want to send anybody out. But I'll tell you, we have to, because otherwise we have no country.
You see how she's so desperate. We sat here for, how long was this? This is about what, 3? So at least for a good minute and a half. A good minute and a half. We listen to her over and over again, but the zero tolerance, but zero tolerance, but the zero tolerance. It doesn't matter what he said, but the zero tolerance, zero tolerance, zero tolerance. She's just pushing a talking point, which is a losing talking point too, which is why Kamala Harris got destroyed in a bloodbath. Okay, she got destroyed in a bloodbath. It was a bloodbath, and she should be embarrassed, and the DNC should be embarrassed because they keep pushing stuff like this, which is a losing formula, which is why they got mollywopped. So now, as we're rounding things out and coming to a close, what I want to do next is I want to get to this part right here where he talks about birthright citizenship and ending birthright citizenship, because there's quite a few things that I want to highlight that he speaks on through a few articles, or 2 articles particularly, once he gets done saying what he's going to say about that. So let's jump into that next.
You understand what I'm saying?
Let me, before we get
and you get a much more accurate count.
Before we get to all of that, let me ask you about some of your other promises on this topic. You've promised to end birthright citizenship on day 1. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
The 14th Amendment, though, says that, quote, all persons born in the United States are citizens. Can you get around the 14th Amendment with an executive action?
We're going to have to get a change. We'll maybe have to go back to the people, but we have to end it. We're the only country that has it.
Through an executive action?
We're the only country that has it. Do if somebody sets a foot, just a foot, 1 foot, you don't need 2, on our land, congratulations, you are now a citizen of the United States of America. Yes, We're going to end that because it's ridiculous.
Through executive action?
Well, if we can, through executive action. I was going to do it through executive action, but then we had to fix COVID first, to be honest with you.
I want to pause right there because I don't want to get too far ahead. Let's talk about this birthright citizenship and the 14th Amendment, so on and so forth, right? Let's get into this because this is something that's grossly outdated. It is grossly outdated. And I'm even going to remove myself off the screen for now so you can see this like in full screen, just so you can see. Number one, right? Where am I reading from? This is National Archives, archives.gov. This isn't Fox News. This isn't Infowars.com. This isn't Breitbart. This isn't any of those that websites, you know, and news outlets and whatnot that you would easily dismiss because, you know, you just think that everything that's not coming from a DNC outlet is fake news, right? So just so you know, and we're all settled here, you know, this is officially from the U.S. government. The 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, Civil Rights, 1868. Let's really zoom in. Let's really zoom in at this. Passed by Congress June 13, 1866, and ratified July 9th, 1868. The 14th Amendment extended liberties and rights granted by the Bill of Rights to formerly enslaved people. Following the Civil War, Congress submitted to the states 3 amendments as part of its Reconstruction program to guarantee equal civil and legal rights to Black citizens. A major provision of the 14th Amendment was to grant citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, thereby granting citizenship to formerly enslaved people. This amendment is grossly outdated. Grossly outdated. This was about slavery and making the formerly enslaved citizens. After that, this became completely outdated and an irrelevant amendment within the Constitution. And now what I want to do is carry on with what they were talking about concerning birthright citizenship, just leading up into how ridiculously difficult it is to get people out of the country once they've come in illegally. So let's jump back into that video right now.
Let me ask you.
You understand what I'm saying?
I'm going to fast forward it just a little bit. I think about here. We'll start from here.
Don't need to on our land. Congratulations, you are now a citizen of the United States of America. Yes, we're going to end that because it's ridiculous.
Through executive action?
Well, if we can, through executive action. I was going to do it through executive action, but then we had to fix COVID first, to be honest with you. We have to end it. It's ridiculous. Do you know we're the only country in the world that has it? Do you know that? There's not one other country.
What about the legal challenge, inevitable legal challenges that'll come?
Do you know we have thousands of judges? Somebody walks onto our land, and we have to now say, welcome to the United States. They could be a criminal or not a criminal. We release them into our country. It's called catch and release. We release them into our country. Wait, just one second. And now they get them lawyers. And the lawyers are good lawyers. And everybody has a lawyer. And do you know how many judges we have? Thousands. Thousands. Now, here's what other countries do. They come into the land and they say, I'm sorry, you have to go. And they take them out. Okay? With us, once they touch our land, we're into litigation that lasts for years, costs us hundreds of billions of dollars. We have judges, and I'm sure they're all honest, but I don't know that for a fact. You can imagine what's going on with the judges. But just so you, because I have a lot of judges, I tell you what, I know more about judges than any human being in history. Look,
I know more about judges than any human being in history. You gotta love Trump. Everything is the greatest of all time or the worst of all time if I don't like you. His is almost finished. And then I want to highlight a point that he's making.
Imagine what's going on with the judges. But just so you, because I have a lot of judges. I tell you what, I know more about judges than any human being in history. Look, we have judges. Every time somebody puts 2 feet or even 1 foot on a piece of our land, it's welcome to long-term litigation. Other countries, every other country, when somebody walks on and they see that they're here illegally, they walk them off, they take them back to where they came from. We have to get rid of this system. It's killing our country.
And he's absolutely right. He said, when you step foot on our land, welcome to, litigation, long-term litigation. And it's because of foolishness like this, as we come to a close. Look at this here. Challenging Trump, California to pay for migrant deportation defense. California, where I live, our tax dollars is going to go to pay for migrant deportation defense. Let's check this out in closing. Completely ridiculous. U.S. Senator Alex Padilla reiterated the state's commitment to continued funding for the deportation defense of migrants and undocumented immigrants. If it's legal assistance, legal advice, legal support, that's just the California way, Padilla said, when asked if the state would fund legal defense of undocumented immigrants facing deportation. We embrace our diversity. Our diversity has made our communities thrive and our economy thrive. Given the state's looming deficits, Republicans wondered whether such funds will be better spent elsewhere. The idea that we would use our tax dollars to defend criminal illegal immigrants is outrageous, said State Assemblyman Billy Asile, a Republican out of Corona, on X. How about we use that money to support the victims of crimes committed by illegal immigrants? Well, that's too much like right. You're saying something that's common sense. And this is California, and we're governed by Gavin Newsom. So common sense doesn't really exist here. We're not going to do that. Okay. California already funds legal services for undocumented immigrants, including a separate fund solely for deportation defense, including $24 million in grants last year solely for deportation defense. $24 million in grants for deportation defense, and $37 million in grants this year for a wide range of other immigration-related legal services for legal and undocumented immigrants. Our system isn't broken. It's designed, at least if you're in a place like California, it's designed to support and maintain the illegal immigrant population. And this is why everybody breaks their neck to come here the way that they do. Because unless, something's done like on a federal level that just completely smashes, sanctuary city laws across the country where that's just illegal, you can't do that. You can't do it. There are no such thing as sanctuary cities. Well, then you're going to keep having, at least not to the degree of Biden as long as Trump's in office, but you're going to keep having this kind of influx of illegal immigrants pouring into the country when they know they have safe havens like this, where even in the face of a Trump administration, the state is going to pay for their legal defense. This is completely ridiculous and outrageous. And with all that being said, that does it for today's show. So I want to thank you all for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video out on your social media platforms. And once again, most importantly, follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. I cannot beg you to do that enough. Telegram at TD Media Group. Now, let's get into the super chats here, right? The first super chat here is from Cynthia Haynes. Cynthia said, "Thank you so much, brother, for your respectful videos. Much love. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your support, Cynthia. Thank you very much for support. And thank you to my man Saul for coming through as he always does. He said they understand they understand Spanish, but dislike the accent. I'm not sure. I'm going to start marking down, particularly when you put your super chats, because more times than not, Saul's responding directly to something that I stated. And in this instant, I don't know what you're responding to, Saul. I don't know what you're responding to right now, but I do appreciate the support, as you always show me support. So I thank you, bro. Thank you, Saul, for always coming through, as you always do, man. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So with all that being said, thank you for joining me. Hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Share this video on social media platforms. Telegram. And I will catch you all tomorrow. Peace and have a great afternoon.